is going to go back to skill number 6, which is adding rational expressions that do not have a common denominator. So this should be a pretty quick little skill for us to get through for the beginning of this week. So I'm looking at the problem set. This is the puzzle 118, and we're going to do a problem from the second column, and I've chosen number 11 to do. So when I analyze the problem, I see that I do not have a common denominator, and it's easy to identify, though, that the common denominator is going to be 20x. So that means that each ratio needs to pick up the missing factor. So the first ratio is going to pick up a 4. Second ratio already has the LCD, so it's covered. And the second ratio is going to pick up a 5. And when I distribute the 4, I'm going to have 16x and 8, and I'll just go ahead and give myself a big fraction bar. My common denominator is going to be 20x. I just simply copy 10x minus 1, and then I apply the 5, and I now have one big ratio. X would not be allowed to equal 0 in this problem if you had to list an excluded value. Now you're combining like terms. So you're going to have 36x's and minus 8 over 20x, and then analyze for factors that can be divided out of the problem. 4 is a common factor across the board. So I would divide the common 4 out of the problem, and the simplified answer would be 9x minus 2 over 5x. So that's the only problem sample that I'll do from this particular problem set. So let's move on to the next problem set from last week. And this is looking at puzzle number 120. And I'm going to do number 8 on the video. So I've copied number 8. I've changed the variable, but that's okay. You all can handle that. So analyzing number 8, I've got 3 distinct rational expressions. The first expression has the common denominator, the difference of squares. So the common denominator is going to be x plus 2, x minus 2, and the excluded values would be positive and negative 2. So that means that the factors that are missing are going to have to be applied to the other 2 ratios. So the ratio in the middle picks up an x minus 2, and the ratio on the end picks up an x plus 2, top to bottom. And I'm not going to waste time and paper by copying all of that, but I will move down here and give myself one large fraction. And my common denominator is x squared minus 4. My new numerator, I'll just roll across. So distributing the 2 and distributing the 5. And now combining like terms, let's see, I'm going to have 7x's, and that's going to be plus 12. And you can just leave the common denominator in its multiplied form. 7 and 12 do not share any factors in common, so this would be your simplified answer. And let's move to the last puzzle from last week. And I'm going to do 2 problems from the second column over here. So this is puzzle number 121, and I'm going to start with number 6. So I've got number 6 copied, and I see that I have no common factors, so my only choice is to take the 2 expressions and multiply them together to create the common denominator. So it's going to be x minus 7 times 3x plus 1. And the excluded value, I don't know why I wrote that, x would not be allowed to equal positive 7 or negative 1/3 if you had to list that. And now getting back to my problem, I'm going to have to introduce the missing factors. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this as one big fraction, but I'll go ahead and do it up here so that you can see what's happening. The first ratio needs to pick up the factor of 3x plus 1, and the second ratio needs to pick up the factor of x minus 7. And notice that the second ratio is being subtracted from the first, so you have to be careful with your signs. So in my next step, I'm going to go ahead and apply the distributing, and I'm going to subtract, and I'll go ahead and put this in parentheses, 2x minus 14. And I'll just write the letters LCD to represent my common denominator. And the reason I've done this, just to review a little bit, when you're subtracting the second ratio from the first, you have to be careful with your signs. So now carrying on with this, I have 9x plus 3, and I'll now apply that negative sign. And once again, I'm still going to just write LCD. And now carrying on to combine like terms. Let's see, I'm going to have 7x's plus 17. I will now write my denominator, and 7 and 17 have no common factors, so I don't anticipate anything factoring out of this problem. So I have the option of writing the common denominator in its factored form, or I could also write it in its multiplied form. It really doesn't matter. But what does matter is that since you are looking for the answer in a problem set that's already prepared for you, the ability to recognize your answer in the form that it's presented becomes important. And here I can see H, they've written the answer in its factored form too. They did not bother to multiply it back out. And let's do one more problem before I end the video. I will do problem number 7, and maybe I'll just set you up and let you finish it on your own from here. It's exactly like the last problem. So the common denominator is simply going to be the two binomials that are already denominators of each individual ratio. And let's see, my excluded values are negative 4 over 5 and positive 3 over 2. So I would take the first ratio. The first ratio needs to pick up a factor of 2x minus 3. And the second ratio needs to pick up a factor of 5x plus 4. All of that over my common denominator, and then multiplying this out. And I'll go ahead and just apply the negative sign here. So that's minus 5x minus 4 over the common denominator. And I think I will let you take it from there on your own and finish this problem without my guidance.